to it, we've seen this actually play out a lot of times. Bane versus Monkey King. Monkey King gets Jingu stacks. Bane trades with Brain Sap. It's really the perfect counter to each other. Neither of them is actually able to win a lot of those trades. They just go even. And that's something to say whenever you are playing as a Bane. You pick Bane to win the lane, so Monkey is a very good counter pick in that regard. But you're giving away your entire lane here. So if Hokori really wants to, RDO has free reign to see what he has to play against and then make a decision off of that. Not just that, if they want to pick RDO's heroes right now, then you get to ban out even more of DNM's pool, which is already starting to thin out really quickly.
Might be a tactical choice on their part. Meanwhile, for 4 Gringos, I do like the Beastmaster there in relation to sort of the global setup from the IO. We saw it, or have seen it in multiple patches in the past. Your Beastmaster goes in with the Roar that sets up for the relocate play, and all of a sudden, that sort of 1v1 pickoff turns into a 3v1, and you can maybe start rolling a little bit more momentum for some of your other cores that way. So that's always going to be a play that 4 Gringos can maybe keep in their back pocket for a rainy day if they find someone valuable. The Beastmaster can jump in maybe knowing that the backup is only a few moments away from helping him out.
Yeah, and it's the same idea with the Batrider. You have a hero that's able to set up kills, you have someone who can actually go in for you. You don't have the beefiest front line right now, but that's where your initiation is so good that you don't really need a front line, but that's where if Hokori wants to go for a greedier hero, if they want to look for maybe the Medusa or the Terrorblade, this game could get pretty scary, but okay. Still counterpicking the Bat.
That Viper's going to make life a little bit less fun for sure, and depending on the itemization, the Viper can get a little bit beefier. Wouldn't really call him the quintessential frontline hero, but he can absorb a little bit of damage with that Viper. That's certainly going to help out, and, well, the damage output, the slow, just the continuous harassment that he can throw down and just take away a lot of the space in the middle of a team fight between himself and the Tiny. There's going to be a lot of space for 4 Gringos that they're not necessarily going to want to operate in.
Yeah, the only thing that Hokori do need to be careful of is if Analog ever falls behind in this game, the hero plays really poorly versus Boars, and it plays really poorly versus the Lasso. Aside from that, though, this is another forcing move that Hokori is trying. When you pick up the Viper in this position, especially after seeing the Monkey King drop down, you say, okay, you are a support Monkey King. You are nothing but. You're going to be a support, and you have to deal with me now. It forces this Monkey King into a position where before, again, DNM had a slight amount of leverage where as soon as you see the offlaner, maybe you can make that more appropriate decision, but that flexibility is all but gone, as well as being able to lane very nicely versus the Batrider. We've also seen a lot of South American teams, whenever they have heroes like the Nyx Assassin, like the Tiny, they get buffed up so much by that Nether Toxin. If you get a hero kill where they're getting initiated on you, throw the pull down, and then the stuns land, they take so much damage. And Nyx Assassin and Tiny specifically, it's not always the first hit, it's always the hit that follows up afterwards where the damage finally sinks in. And that's where Viper is going to make these heroes seem a lot thinner on the 4 Gringo side. And again, durability is the real problem right now. The best hero they have to keep these heroes out of that danger zone is just the Wisp. So no double save strat coming out from them. They're going to be more reliant on their own items than they are going to be on that synergy between themselves.
Yeah, that is going to be a rather sizable concern for 4 Gringos, especially with a lineup that presumably is going to want to be aggressive with the Bat and the Beastmaster, even the Monkey King. If he tries to jump in, throw the Wukongs down, once you go in, there's very little to then pull you back out or really keep you up in the middle of the fight outside of the IO, and he can only target up one hero at a time. So these fights could end up having some rather sizable consequences. Once you're in, you're kind of stuck in the middle of it, but we'll see what the... Ooh. I was going to say the carry picks would be, but 4 Gringos with the Lion out at the end here, so that is presumably going to be the Monkey King slotting into a carry role for them.
Yeah, I don't like it. I'll tell you right now, I don't like it. It's not really playing towards any of the strengths that I was mentioning a little bit earlier. If Analog has a good game on this Viper, it is going to feel impossible for DNM to make an appearance in these fights. And I thought that the Lion was coming out in that previous phase, and I feel like it would have slotted in a little bit better. I don't think they would have gone for the Viper without already seeing the Monkey King down.
Oh.
And they just go for the Invoker. So they even swap it up again. So now it's going to be probably a offlane Viper. Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like they've been forced into a really ugly position for them now.
Hmm. This is, yeah, not exactly what we expected, but we'll see how things go. But the thing on the four Gringo side, I mean, that Lion pick, it doesn't do anything to alleviate our concerns about their durability. In fact, it makes them even squishier. With the Monkey King now being pushed into a core position, even when you find that farm as a core hero, outside of your own lifesteal, he doesn't always build a lot in the way of durability. So, I don't know. If Four Gringos are aggressive, they're taking advantage of that global strat, if they're getting in and out finding those kills, then more power to them. But when that isn't happening, when we have a full sort of 5-on-5 fight, I'm not sure how long they can really last.
Yeah, and this is again the flexibility of the Tiny, a hero that I think is going to. It already feels like a staple, but it's going to be even more of a staple in the safe lane position where many players, many teams are trying it out, and now we get to see RDO go for it for the first time here. And it is in the same vein as possibly the safe lane Magnus, where you farm incredibly quickly, you have natural cleave, you do so much damage, and Silver Edge is busted. So all the items that you're going to build up towards feel fantastic. And a natural Silver Edge carrier playing versus Monkey King, I just think the break is going to be brutal in this game. And that's why I was really concerned. I think as soon as that happens, you need to swap things up. But this Viper pick really forced everything that Hokori would have wanted out of their draft.
Yeah, this really feels like Hokori did a fantastic job of just, as you said, making those forcing moves. And a lot of the time, those forcing moves are almost a bluff that then needs to be called, right? The opposing team can decide we're okay with taking the risk and ignoring that. But for Gringos, it feels like they didn't call the bluff, but they also didn't avoid it. They just kind of went for this weird third route that isn't supposed to exist, that they just forced their way into. And I don't know. We both say, ET, this lineup for them is really not what we would prefer to see, but anything can happen. That is the beauty of Dota. So we'll see if they can pull it off. But it feels like they've made the climb a little bit steeper for themselves.
Yeah, and they do have some things going for them. When they do swap this Viper over to the off lane instead of the mid lane, it does put a little bit less pressure on kits. Of course, Invoker is no shab in lane. It is a very obnoxious hero and one that will slow you down a lot of the time, but there is a lot less solo kill threat. If analog solo kills kits here, I would be incredibly surprised. I really don't think anything like that should happen. But that's where I just feel like Hikori have played to so many counter picks in this lineup. Like you have Nyx Assassin versus Batrider, you have Bane versus Io. You don't really have the easiest time getting on top of this Bane either. I think that's where four Gringos are going to need to play the vision game that we saw both teams play earlier today with the Night Stalker, except now that hero is going to be the Beastmaster and the Batrider. If four Gringos can play the rotation heavy, we're going to be always 5 across the map while still out farming you playstyle, then I can think it'll work. The problem is Hokori just have heroes that do things. They are always going to be successful if they get a few levels here and there, and that's where my big concern lies for them.
Are you ready to rumble?
It just feels like overall Hokori have a much easier lineup to execute. So see whether or not that actually ends up being true, as we did have a brief pause there, but it looks like both sides are... Oh, never mind, both sides are not ready. Hokori still need an extra moment. So brief pause at the start. Might as well get it in here early before the creep waves have even spawned up. But interesting to note here, we've got both Giant and Pingu making their way top. So this may be an attempt at a first... Ooh. Okay, not quite ready yet. Might be an attempt at a first blood play between them. The Io's not really a great hero to make that attempt, but you see the line already skilling up the Earth Spike. So between the three of them, if the Monkey King gets in there for the extra damage, maybe they could make that play happen. But even with this trio, I feel like somebody from this offlane duo is going to have to maybe step a little bit too far forward for this tri-lane to actually find an early kill.
And we've actually seen this setup once before, where you try to tri-lane versus the Viper, slow him down as much as you can. El Misho already has boots though, so can only imagine that there's going to be some creep steal shenanigans, but they even put the boar all the way up here to try and allow for a play to happen, and I was going to get gone on, and should be
El
pretty
Misho's got the
but
stun.
El Misho?
There it is. Okay, nicely done. Vitali's able to walk away. They don't get the chance to turn that around on a Giant, although they do pretty sizable amount of damage, but Yeah, that's going to be the break up there. They go for one attempt. When they don't get it, Pingu TP's down bot.
Yeah, and even committing the boar up here, they were really looking for that play, but just a little bit too well played. And unfortunately, this is where the Monkey King versus Viper lane is at its best for Monkey King. You get a few too many levels, and then suddenly this Viper is a monster that you can't really contest with. And I think DNM is going to start feeling the pressure pretty soon here with Giant as well, not being the best 5-position hero. It just does not feel as nice as some other hero he might have been able to get slotted into, but they've asked for the setup, so they're going to run with it regardless.
Giant's got to be careful. El Misho has the stun. They're going to deploy it. That should be a relatively easy first blood, or maybe not. Earth Spike comes in. Boundless Strike follows. And it is first blood, just not quite the way that I thought. DNM sort of snatches that one out at the very end. El Misho is still able to finish off Giant, but that is going to be core for support and the first blood bonus going for Gringos' way.
Yeah, perfectly played from them. They strike right before you have that level 3 point on the Viper. They went as soon as they got level 2 on the Monkey King, and they had just enough damage. And now you have Orb Boots. That's something versus the Viper. It means that there really isn't going to be too much kill potential if DNM is very simply able to walk away. The poison attack is setting him maybe 20 MS slower. It really feels like now DNM has a few more options available to him, but that's where you got to start getting the pulls going, and that's what Giant is exactly doing. If the creep wave is as far up as it is, it's very hard for him to make these plays. And
Misho's going to get punished. He tried to disrupt that pull instead. He's just going to run into 2 and does get the stun down, but he may still be dying. Yeah, he's going to look for the deny, and he doesn't get it. DNM, 2 kills in the top lane.
So simple for him. So easy.
That was, yeah, as you said, just a simple rundown for the Monkey King. It shouldn't really be that easy, not because he doesn't have the kit for it, but because you'd think in most situations El Misho wouldn't really get caught out there, but didn't realize both heroes were coming over to defend that pull camp until it was too late. And now this top lane's just looking a little bit rough. They're going to try to put some damage onto Giant here in exchange, but Vitaly's still only level 2, and he actually hasn't skilled up anything with that second point. So his offensive capabilities right now are kind of limited.
Yeah, and I think El Misho just needs to mirror Giant a little bit more. Giant's been a little bit too successful in his support play, as well as DNM also being the hookup. Every single time Giant's been going for these pulls, the Monkey King is being very obnoxious, and that's the entire reason I think that El Misho got punished there, is because of the really good positioning of the Monkey King. But that's where it's also very easy to start losing control of the lane. You see Vitaly just staticking it, making sure that there's no way for them to actually get anything under control, and he's going to be, what, 10-7 in a few seconds here, and they're running around trying to get the play going onto El Misho, but it's very hard for it to happen. If he gets Jingu, maybe? Okay, no.
He does at least have the Jingu. It's not really going to turn into too much, but it does make this duo of Vitaly and El Misho think twice about pushing their way any further in. Vitaly, though, he's hit level 3, so as a Viper, he is going to be a little bit tougher here, but DNM still holds that level advantage, and he's still farming up incredibly well, too. So Vitaly still has some ways to go to really catch back up as the Boundless out onto El Misho. Giant, well, I'm not sure they would have had the damage for that kill, but he was on a perfect sort of flanking route there to go for the Earth Spike. But with DNM that far away, maybe they decided probably wasn't going to be easy enough for them to really fully commit for it, especially if DNM can just sit here and continue to farm. Why risk that advantage in lane for a kill you may not get onto a Nyx Assassin who's not massively valuable?
Yeah, and El Misho, he really likes doing this. Every single time he gets himself on the Nyx Assassin, he always goes for those early points of mana, but yeah.
Stuck in the tether that whole time, so Pingu and Valky just kept on sort of hacking away at him. They very nearly get the kill onto the IO, but this is a bit of the problem with that position 1 Tiny, at least this early. You don't have too many points up, actually, in that Avalanche Toss combo from RDO, so he throws that out, it doesn't get the kill, and at that point you're not particularly fast on your right clicks. Or Gringos not only survive that push-in, they get the kill. And unfortunately now we do have a pause coming out from that for Gringos side as Valkyrie has DC'd. But the lanes to this point really going pretty damn well for them. I think the only major cause for concern might be mid, where Kits is slightly behind Analog.
Yeah, and the mid lane really isn't too big of a problem. He's even more behind than I think we realized just because I think a lot of those last hits are coming from the small camp, but that's also where Invoker can't really farm the small camp. You have to get lucky on the spawns, and unless you have, I think, 3 and 3, it's still relatively slow, so Analog's never going to go for it. Instead, I think staticking the lane is a much better decision, but that's where Kits does spend a lot of the time actually out of the lane because you're always running back to base, getting mana. You're not one of those heroes like the Tiny that we sometimes see versus the Invoker, where you spend all your mana, then you get EMP, and then you're like, oh, I've got 3 bottle charges, I'll be fine. This lane is a little bit more brutal in that way, but it's again a farm fest that the Batrider can't really show up to early engagements, and that's where Analog needs to be the aggressor. Analog is the one who breaks the lanes. He's the one who can rotate to both top and bottom, and that's where the fights will actually start. So seeing when he rotates out is going to be, I think, very key for the pace that Hokori want to set.
That is the double-edged sword to a certain extent. We've seen it in this event and other games we've sort of casted so far in Pro Series 8 and before that. If the Invoker starts making those rotations and you don't find that success, all of a sudden, where's your fallback plan? As you mentioned, your Invoker can't exactly farm up those sort of side camps. He can't take too many stacks, so you want him making those rotations, but you do need to be unbelievably careful that he does find his mark, because it would not take that long, or any time at all, really, if those ganks don't work for Kits to just be right back, not just on par, but maybe even ahead of the Invoker if they can't get those first couple of ganks to work.
Yeah, and it's the risk that some teams don't go for. That's why people pick Batrider, because it is a guarantee. It's same with the Storm Spirit. You are always going to be able to cause something across the map. And I think that's where side lanes winning for Gringos is actually pretty big for them, because it makes Analog more hesitant to make those rotations. And he's already got an urn flying out to him, I think. Unfortunately, I also believe that Vitaly rushed one, so it's a little bit awkward for him now. Maybe I'm wrong, it's just another null talisman, but we might see Analog go for that more farm-oriented build-up, but it's not like we can even check, because it's hard to click things.
Got to do that box select. It's a null talisman coming out to him. So
okay,
yeah, no double up there. That always feels so damn bad, even in just a pub match when you have sort of the double urn accidentally. Can't imagine how much worse it must feel in a pro game. But yeah, Vitaly's already got his. Analog not going for that. That second null, though, is going to give him a nice little boost up in that middle lane. Nothing game-breaking, obviously, but a little bit of extra strength to deploy, not just against Kits, but maybe on some of those early rotations that we were talking about, as we are back underway here. Everyone was able to reconnect successfully, and we'll see really where that first, I was going to say first strike, there's 4 kills on the board, but that first sort of maybe post-lane strike comes from here, as we do see a rotation from El Micho, but less of a rotation, more of a scouting mission. Throws down the obs ward in the eye spot on the cliff there, and now it looks like Analog is the one making the move, making his way up top. We'll see if they can get onto the Monkey King. Would be probably preferred, but the Lion is the easier kill, and they are going to go for Giant instead. Okay. Quick and easy. Analog rotates in. They didn't even really get much assistance from the Viper, who just can continue trying to deal with the lane, and that honestly kind of works out, because with Vitaly not rotating over, DNM also could not get involved. He had to show some respect to the fact that the Viper could still hit him up and maybe catch him out here, as DNM's on the tree. There's no way really that any of the Hokori players would have known that, but if they could have cut that down, that would have led them into a nice fight. But as it stands, they push up to the tower. They can sort of steal the creep wave out from under it. Vitaly's going to be able to farm that up, and Analog, he's still here, and that is going to be perfect. There's going to be the tornado coming out, the EMP thrown down. DNM does not have a whole lot to work with here, as he does get hit by the impale. Now they're going to throw down the Nether Toxin into those poison attacks, and DNM should be falling here to the right click, as Vitaly will get the kill.
Yeah, perfectly played. I thought Analog was in vision there for a few seconds after they farmed that small camp with the Nether Toxin before, but just stayed perfectly hidden in the trees, and then super quick reaction with the cold snap there. If DNM's able to leap, then it's more time wasted and more time over to both of the other cores, who have finding really fantastic success, especially Kits. As soon as that Invoker spent that much time out of the lane, he has been able to just farm up, do whatever he wants, but it's still just the first. You have to keep doing that on the Hokori side. You have to keep finding your openings, especially right now, because right now, what are you playing against? You're playing versus a Bat Rider who's going for Boots of Travel, and you're playing versus a Beastmaster where if he TPs, he can only bring one boar. So really, the TP rotations from 4 Gringos are very weak, and I think that's where DNM, yeah, you even see him already. He's TP to the bot lane. He wants to meet up with his strong heroes. He doesn't want to force his strong heroes to come to him. So I think we're going to start seeing the laning stage end, and a lot of these tier 1 towers start to actually fall down.
Yeah, we'll see how much emphasis they can put on those early pushes here, as we do have another pause. Players continuing to deal with some lag issues. RDO 223 ping. Yeah, that's not fun. So he is going to continue trying to sort of reconnect here. Hopefully that can subside for him fairly quickly and doesn't have to deal with that, especially with these heroes coming his way. You do not want to play with any degree of lag with 3 heroes sort of converging on your location. Potentially even 4 if Kits wants to get involved as well. I don't think he will pre-Boots of Travel, but he's sort of in the neighborhood as well. So this Tiny would have a lot of aggression coming his way, and where's the backup right now? You see Gardic, he's a little bit far away. He could just cut that short with a TP, but other than that, everyone else would have to be TPing in as well, and well, Misho has his available. Analog's got a TP up, so really if they did want to rush reinforcements over here, they certainly could do so. It's just going to be a matter of how quickly could they spot this out.
Yeah, and you got to be really careful. Gardic is gotten off to a pretty good start on the Bane, but as soon as you get level 6, that's when the fight gets really complicated. But I think 4 Gringos are doing a really good job here. They know that they need to play a little bit more together. I think they're also farming up really well on kits now, especially after you have to play versus Invoker. You're going to fall behind, but take a look at Analog, and he is not going for either build. He is just immediately rushing a Witchblade, and that is so obnoxious to deal with if you're either of the cores on the 4 Gringos side. Both Bat and Monkey King need to approach you, and this Witchblade is such an obnoxious pickup. Once Analog has it, the solo kill potential is also through the roof. He could straight up kill Giant if he shows in a wave just trying to get levels somewhere.
Bit of a novel approach there for the Invoker. We've seen some sort of farming-oriented builds in the past from the Invokers, but Analog wants to fight. Right now, he wants to push, and he and Vitaly are going to be able to do exactly that as they do get that tier 1 tower. It is looking, though, honestly like a bit of a trade-off. RDO cleared out of that bottom lane, so I mentioned during the pause they would have to sort of TP supports over. Since they weren't doing so, RDO says no. Clears out. That does sacrifice the tower, but it's going to be a trade. Tier 1's taken out across the map, and RDO is trying to take the time to farm up in the jungle here as he's working towards that early echo.
Yeah. And once he has that echo, you can definitely see this Monkey King posting up in some more aggressive positions, but this is where Hokori now have to consider how they want to deal with the pressure coming in from the 4 Gringos side, because you're playing Beastmaster Dota. You get the collapse onto the mid lane. That's why Hokori's vision is fantastic here. They know exactly the movement that this Beastmaster has to take, so might as well have full knowledge of how he's actually going to go. That's the only problem with Beastmaster. It's very obvious what you actually want to do, so you even see them killing the board. But yeah, top. Kits. So clean.
And
easy as pie.
Yeah, you mentioned in the draft that is one of the downsides of the Viper. If you're by yourself with that bat, the lasso just sort of takes so much of his kit away from him, and Kits will get himself probably one of the easier kills he could have picked up there on the map outside of maybe Gardic. So that is his first kill of the game, showing off the Boots of Travel now as he was able to finish those off, and this is where the bat is going to become a little bit more intimidating. Before, you were sort of keeping him away from some of these fights while he finished off that first major item, but now he may look to get a little bit more aggressive. Speaking of aggressive, though, Misho maneuvering his way down, spotting out Valky and Pingu, goes for the Impale, connecting onto 2. That's going to set up for the Tornado onto both of them as well, into the EMP. And Valky taken down right away. Pingu's going to be able to just sort of sneak his way out of here, but yeah, they'll just TP out. So they get the far more valuable of the 2, and that is a pretty fantastic setup from Misho. I'm not sure if he was planning on getting both, but clips them both with the stun, and that sets up a relatively solid counterplay there.
Yeah, and it's really clean, and that's your cost. Because Misho wasn't playing top with Vitaly, he's not able to spike to save his Viper, so you're already setting a bottom with the Vendetta. So that's exactly what needed to happen, and unfortunately, That's something that 4 Gringos need to do with their next support rotations.
Gonna
But yeah,
jump on the
Kits,
Kits. Hit him up with the
got
tornado
him.
into the avalanche toss. Kits not dead just yet, though, but with this many heroes, this is going to be tough for him to dance his way
Carapace,
out of. Where is
no.
that Carapace play? El Misho is... Oh,
Oh,
he's going to pop it there, but
I
Analog is a
see.
bit off the mark with that Sunstrike. So Kits, he's got to get out. That was 4 heroes who came looking for him, and they won't find the pick.
Yeah, I think that El Misho was waiting to pop the Carapace there to try and get Kits going for a greedy TP, but what ended up happening is he waited not long enough, but also didn't pop it immediately, so there was never any chance for them to catch up to him. So El Misho made the worst decision out of both scenarios. Unfortunately, they are back in Hokori territory here. And this is what I was trying to say before about them needing to, if they want to play in this area, this one ward that Pingu's able to have is great. It's in a really good spot, but they also need to actually convincingly take this high ground position. Otherwise, plays like that are just going to happen, and Giant really can't afford to be there.
Yeah, that is the play that he has to try and avoid. If they can set up that vision, great. If not, you can't be there if you don't have the vision. It sounds so simple, but it's unfortunate for the 4 Gringos side. But hey, Giant's right back up and in. He's going to TP in to try and defend this tier 1 tower, but there's a lot of Hokori heroes here, and you see El Misho just sort of trying to get in the middle there, looking to see if anybody steps too far away from protection of the tier 1, and as of right now, no such luck, but the tower is taking a beating here. They may just actually be able to get the objective. Oh, Tornado comes in, that prevents the lasso play into the Impale, into the Viper Strike, actually. And now Pingu, he didn't have the relocate up in time. He was trying to get in there with the tether, but wasn't already channeling that ult, so Kits ends up getting brought down. Vitali is dropping low to the boars, but not enough damage there to bring him down. So Hokori really probably get the best possible outcome there. They get the tower and a kill onto the bat with no sacrifice having to be made.
Yeah, Analog's tornadoes have been so good. Everything has felt very clean from him, and you see there, as soon as you pop the Firefly to try and get into the engagement, El Misho walks on top of it. You try to go for the save play, but even that is a little bit too risky, so Pingu doesn't even try for it. So it's still very difficult for them to make a lot of these plays. I think now you need to bide your time a little bit on the 4 Gringos side. Again, you need to go towards that bottom area. You have an Echo Saber finished up on DNM, so he's a lot stronger. He can cement himself down there for a lot longer, but you need to start getting some of these plays on this tier 2 bottom, because if you get plays and heroes to rotate bot, that allows you to make the rotation mid, because right now what's happening is 4 Gringos are taking half of the farm, while Hokori are still playing this very aggressive, fast lineup, and it's almost the same story we saw from FG in that first game, where as soon as they try to play this global strat, if you get out-rotated by your opponents, the game feels really difficult for you to make any play, because that's what your lineup's meant to do, and this is a really good ward in Valkyrie. Well,
Walks right into it. Mana gets burned away. Sunstrike comes through to finish the kills. Analog snipes it out from the middle lane, and Hokori starting to get on a bit of a roll here. And now Analog, look at this. He went for the Witchblade first. Now he is actually going back for that Hand of Midas. So a little bit of the best of both worlds there in terms of the itemization. But if it works, it's going to keep him in the upper echelons of that net worth chart.
yeah, and this is where the proactive plays could definitely be helping them a little bit more here, but look at the stack that, unfortunately, El Misho is going to take half of the XP from. It's just gross. Look at him.
Gotta love it sometimes playing the Nyx Assassin. You do nothing. You sit there invis and you soak up XP and then scurry away. So Misho's able to take some of that. He gets eyes on where that Bat Rider is, which means this Hokori lineup up top, they don't have to care. There's no one coming in. There is absolutely no way the Bat TP's top and sacrifices that stack to defend a tier 2 tower that was almost certainly dead anyway. So they'll let him have that stack. They don't let him get all the experience, and they claim further control of the map now. The entire top lane's been cleared out, and with the towers gone top and the tier 1 missing mid, a lot of this northside jungle is basically Hokori territory, especially with the wards that they've sort of set up in this area as well. They just have more control of it than 4 Gringos do.
Yeah, and I don't know what the drawing that DNM was doing actually indicates there, but I think they need to stamp their feet in the ground somewhere. They have their ultimates available to them. They have literally everything, well, aside from the monkey ring, but that's just because DNM is going a little bit greedier with his build. But this is happening to be a situation where For Gringos, they need one hero setup and then everyone else finding the kill. Where Hokori are bringing 2 to 3 people to all of their engagements, and Almisho is disgusting on this
This
Nyx
is just
Assassin.
not
He
fair. He
knows because
has
of the Ghost
so
Walk,
much
but
vision. I mean, what can he do here, really? As soon as Analog's there, okay, they missed the Impale, but I don't really think that's going to matter. The Cold Snap is still helping to keep Valky locked down. The Tornado comes in to prevent him from getting out the Roar, and Almisho's just doing so much here. Obviously, Analog comes in to actually make the play and deal the damage, but if Almisho doesn't get that vision, there's no way that the Invoker sort of wanders into that area. So they are doing so much right now with this Nyx Assassin, whereas for Gringos, we are not seeing the same level of aggression. Once the Batrider got sort of turned back around that tier 1 tower mid, he has not taken any steps to get aggressive again.
yeah, and that's where it's a struggle, right? Because Valkyrie is the only hero that can go top, but it's also where I don't think that was the original plan for this lineup, at least coming from the draft. If you can stick Giant in that top lane, if you can stick, you're not really Pango. It really can only be Giant. If Giant's strong enough, he gets to sit up there. He's the one who tanks the gank. It isn't a problem, and you get pressure on this tier 2 tower, but instead what's happening is they're getting picked off left, right, and center. These heroes are just always being found out, and it's a little bit expensive to use the grip on just a Lion, but still, they've been so fast with their rotations. As soon as they get the kill bottom, they're running back top. If they get Valkyrie for a third time here, it's still just the entire map. Every single kill they get is taking off a really key player on the 4Gringos side. And while this has been time for Kits to finish off his BKB, they're going to try for a fight here, and I think this is exactly what 4Gringos need to do, but you're playing into some deep Hokori vision. They have to be so careful with who they start on. If they find Vitaly, that would be the best scenario for them.
Yeah, the number of spaces that 4Gringos can safely sort of position themselves to take that fight is really low. And they just have to hope for the best, though, as they push their way forward. Analog is the closest target, but they're not going to run into him. Vitaly, though, hit up by the Boundless Strike, and they are going to try and pull him back in. Good play from Almisho, though, trying to get in there for the stun with the Carapace, but it still leaves Vitaly trapped up in the middle of everyone. Giant even throwing down the Finger of Death just to make sure that they would have the damage, but they do get the kill, and all important there, one there onto Vitaly. So they needed something, ET. They do get it. We'll see now how quickly they can sort of refresh and go again, because they didn't use a lot. The Roar is still there. The Lasso is still available, so they could find another hero maybe sort of caught straggling or lagging behind, then they could keep the aggression going as they push onto the tier 1.
And all importantly, Kits with the haste rune.
That same play coming out again. The BKB is deployed afterwards, but I'm not sure that's going to be enough. They need the vision. They do have it. Analog could get caught here. That would be a big lasso play, and they've got it. They're going to pull the Invoker back in. They've got the damage to bring him down, but now RDO into the fight. There's going to be the Avatos coming through. They trade out for Giant. Now they want Pingu as well. He's looking for the relocate home, and he is not going to be able to make it. RDO, with the tree toss, will find that kill. And 4Gringos are going to have to fall back, but that was honestly a big pickup there onto the Invoker, and they only lose the 2 supports in exchange.
Yeah, and Kits gets out. It was really well timed and a good force from him. If he isn't that aggressive, I don't think that play ever gets to happen, but the strength of having that haste run on Batrider, it was a very fortunate pickup for him. He doesn't have that, the game doesn't start. They don't get that kill into Analog, and then the fight resets. Unfortunately, it is still very difficult to fight around a lot of these targets, and that's why Hokori immediately run back to their opponent's side. Oh, Almisho.
Oh, they caught him. Nice Carapace play to stun up too, but he's still trapped here, and he is going to be taken down. But tanks the gank. That is a 5-man sort of push in there for only the Nyx, so at least his cores are going to be able to clear out. But you are starting to lose a little bit of that element of surprise. 4Gringos are now coming with more and more detection.
Yeah, and now this allows 4Gringos to take a lot more of these aggressive positions. If they're able to push this top lane in all the way, they're going to feel a lot happier about it. And Kits is okay.
He's on the hunt. Gardic is
can't
really,
grip.
Yeah, not going to be able to do much of anything there. So Kits with another kill for himself, 2-1 and 3 now on the Batrider, and this is what you want to see from 4Gringos. This is where the activity level starts to pick up for them just when it really needed to. And on the other side, well, some items are getting picked up. You see that Silver Edge finished off by RDO. And meanwhile, I believe Almisho got his hands on a Yule Scepter here too. So, well, it's going to give him maybe a little bit more in the way of both utility for offensive and defensive purposes. But the question for Hokori at this point now is, what do they do with this? The Silver Edge is complete. Does RDO now try to find some of those fights when that item is up and active, or do we simply see him continue to farm? Because so far, outside of maybe 1 or 2 fights, he has really been farming focused, but with this 4-man smoke play, it looks like he is going to get himself a little bit more involved here. We'll see what they can find in the top lane. Everyone on the side of 4 Gringos is here, so this could get nasty as Kits is going to get jumped in on right away. Can they lock him down? Not quite yet. That's a big stun out from Giant into the roar from Valky, really keeping this lineup locked in place. Now, they do deploy the lasso. It's not going to be able to save Kits, but it does get the kill onto RDO. Vitali dropping low as well, and Hokori have to fall back. Analog is going to be able to get away with the invis. Gardic, though, not quite as fortunate as they do use that dive bomb from the Hawk to get the stun and the kill. And now they've actually locked down Omisho as well, but at that point, he's a little bit too far away for them to chase. But that fight, again, more of what 4 Gringos want. You have to sacrifice Kits, but the 3-for-1 gets them the win, and presumably the tower here as well.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a late timing for him. If he pops his BKB, then I think it's an even bigger wash for them, but that's also where really good job from Giant, really good job from Valkyrie, able to break up that initiation and punishing the fact that Hokori cores have not gone for real items. They've gone back for the Midas, they've gone for the greedy finish up on the Silver Edge, and immediately after that fight, you see RDO queue up that BKB for a very, very good reason. He is a target now. He is a liability for his teammates a little bit here, as well as Omisho. Even though you go for the Yule Scepter, and Yule's is a fantastic item on Nyx Assassin, that isn't a blink dagger. That isn't your immediate, I'm going to blink into the firefight and then stun up this Bat Rider and then he's not able to react. It just feels like with the item choices they've gone for, they've allowed for Gringos to have this pretty sizable opening where they are now stamping their feet in the ground here saying, we've got double BKB. We are not afraid of you at all. You want to fight in your jungle, we'll take it.
Yeah, it just seems like Hokori, I don't know, they built some of these items like they already had, honestly, a bit of a bigger lead than they actually were in possession of. So some of these items that at the time, honestly, kind of felt a little bit risky too, now it's not quite paying off in the way that they need, and yeah, you see the BKB queued up by the Invoker as well, so really all of those cores starting to look towards that itemization. Vitali, well, not quite going there just yet, but he was at least able to get the Lotus out, so that is going to be pretty impressive for anybody on the 4 Gringo side. Reflect the Roar, the Lasso, the Finger of Death, any of it would be big for them. But right now for Gringos, they're actually just going to push straight into the Roche Pit, and really, Hokori, well, they know now with the Sunstrike coming through, but it's far too late to stop it.
Yeah, and I think they are wholeheartedly respecting their opponents right now. They're saying that we cannot take a fight. We need to now play on the edge, wait for this BKB to be finished up on our Tiny, and RDO does have the Aghanim Shard, so he will be farming incredibly quickly with this hero, but at the same time, 4 Gringos are playing so well with this opening that their opponents have really given to them, because Hokori itemized like they had a lead, which they did, plain and simple, but they didn't itemize to keep that lead, and that is the big problem right now, where the core is, and yet again another haste rune over on the Bat Rider, you envelop the map so quickly. You get rid of all of the vision that your opponents have, you have this Hawk, you have this gem picked up on the Bat as well, and when you are as 5, Elmisho doesn't feel like a hero. You feel like the reason that we have this Nyx Assassin for the information, for the ability to play in these side lanes, isn't really affecting us anymore.
At least they're trying for some split push plays here on the Hokori side. You do see the Forward Spirits going to work on the tower, and actually they're doing a pretty substantial amount of damage to it, so they at least have that going for them. But the reason why they're doing this is because they really can't afford to fight right now. You'd be fighting into the Aegis, and now, as you said, that itemization starts to, well, kind of rear its head a little bit more, because really, what can you do here with a Midas, with a Silver Edge? You can find pickoffs, that's for sure, but then 4 Gringos aren't giving you that opening. They're just grouping up. They're pushing very cautiously in the middle lane, so 4 Gringos feel like they've responded almost perfectly to what they saw from their opponents early, and it's up to Hokori now to try and pivot the strat here, pivot the item build, try and get themselves into a stronger position now to hold on to this sort of narrow lead that they've still got.
Yeah, and they do have to be very careful here, like the split push play. This is the big reason why Tiny is as highly valued as he is right now. If you march a creep wave up to a tower and you forget about it for a few moments, the Tiny just takes it out in less than 15 seconds. And he found the jump on Analog.
They're in. They get the dive bomb from the Hawk there as well, into the relocate, into the Boundless Strike, and they've got Analog dead. Quick pick off for them. They're going to look for El Micho now as well, as the Nyx Assassin, well, gets away initially there with the Carapace, but the Flame Break is going to knock him back. Kits should have the vision with that, with that gem, and they've got him. They pick off both. That is a massive play in from Giant, and Hokori, I don't know if they didn't see it or they didn't respect it, thinking it was just the Lion there to maybe clean up the creep wave, but with that Blink Dagger, he just jumps his way forward and he sets up 2 big kills for the Four Gringos side.
Yep, and now you force the Tiny back into the base. You get to fix your wave, and for the first time, I think today, we've gotten a hero blinking in, relocate on top of it, and then that hero is incredibly dead. So finally, the global strat is coming out, and that's a big reason why RDO himself is so hesitant to show up to a lot of these fights. But this is still all time that Four Gringos have rightfully earned, because Hokori are still 1 component away on both of their cores here before double BKB comes out, and by that time, maybe your Aegis will already be expired on the Four Gringos side, so they get to take a little bit of a slower round, but you've been able to play with such a lead at this point that I think they're really happy with their position in this game, and Hokori just aren't giving them team fights anymore because they know that they're going to lose if they actually get into these engagements. How long has it been since we've seen a Fiend's Grip happen? It feels like neither of the supports on Hokori's side have been able to make any plays past that 15-minute mark.
The last Fiend's Grip.
Giant,
we'll get to that in a second, as El Micho's going to get hit up here, dropping down the sentry to maintain the vision, but with Kits in with the gem, they really didn't need it, but better safe than sorry as they find the pickoff. But the last Fiend's Grip, I'm pretty damn sure, was the one that the Bane threw out against Giant. Really down here, south of the outposts, was that like 10 minutes back, maybe? The one we said we weren't sure was entirely necessary. You didn't really want to use it on him, but they kind of had to. And that has proven correct. They haven't really had any opportunities since to throw that Fiend's Grip out.
Yeah, and it just means that all the time in the world over to DNM. DNM's going to have a Scotty pretty soon here, and that's where the lineup really starts to crumble on the Hokori side. That's where this Tiny cannot stay in a Wukong's command. If you get dragged in by that lasso, aside from the Lotus Orb finished up by Vitaly, there is no real defense versus it right now. There's no Blink Daggers, there's no Force Staffs, there's no Aether Lenses. It feels like they have to be so close to each other on the Hokori side, while Four Gringos have such long reach whenever these fights actually happen. And they're smoking out on the Aegis.
JBs, though, so they want it. The Aegis timer is going to time out. Kits, though, tries to go in for the lasso, but he's immediately stunned up by the Carapace. There's going to be the Wukong's command thrown out, though, and look at Giant in with the Earth Spike onto about 3 or 4, but they'll still lose Kits. Giant goes down as well. RDO, with that Alacrity, is really dishing out the damage, but he's still fighting inside of that Wukong's command, and DNM is going to win that fight pretty much every time, as Vitaly now gets stunned up by the Hawk. A second dive bomb comes through to make sure he stays stunned, and that leaves Analog and Gardic to try and make their escape. The Finger of Death from Giant wasn't enough for the kill, so Analog does have a chance to get himself away here. But with DNM coming in, this is going to get complicated. Bound the Strike will miss, though, and Analog is still on the run. Looking for that TP out now. He has used the Ghost Walk, and DNM, he used the Bound the Strike previously. He doesn't have it available there, so Analog's able to get away, but that fight's not what Hokori wanted. They do get a couple of kills. They force a buyback out from the Lion, but the 3 that they lose in exchange is still going to swing that very clearly in their opponent's favor.
Yeah, and you see RDO accepting death, basically. Whenever he has to fight up versus the Monkey King in the ring, it's not like he can very easily get out. I think maybe he's able to walk out in that situation just because it's his 9-second BKB, but they smoke out, double BKB, they try to go for a fight, and then if Kits gets his BKB off there, it's even worse for them, but you still have this monster monkey that you really haven't dealt with up until this point, and to deal with him, you need to get a grip onto him, a successful grip onto him, and that's where I don't think Four Gringos are ever going to give you that opportunity, and that's where I think Hokori might have to go back to adopting that strategy of just split the lanes, try to tear apart your opponents, look for opportunities. But man, these Hawks from Valkyrie have been seeing everything now. In the earlier stages of the game, he was really struggling to get his territory going in his own favor, but ever since then, it feels like he's really been a staple of the map.
Yeah, he gets the vision, and then when the team fights start, we've seen it repeatedly.
Oh, and there's
he's
Kits.
able to get the stuns in as Kits. Flame Break is a little bit off the first time. The second time it hits the Carapace. El Micho At this point, though, isn't getting away. This is really just, yeah, his death stand there as he does get picked off. Pingu is going to be able to get the kill, but...
And bottom.
Oh, they want to relocate. They're in onto Analog. They spotted him coming in. Giant gets a stun down. There's going to be the lasso into the Finger of Death. Vitali can't get there in time. That Lotus is not going to do any good as Analog... Actually, he popped the BKB, but Pingu gets him with the right click, but now they're trying to force this into a fight. Valky, though, comes in with the roar. This is getting a little bit complicated, and now DNM pops that Wukong's command. RDO has to step out of it, but that means Vitali is stuck inside with Gardic. They'll both fall. And the Tiny's the only survivor as he'll TP home. Hokori are just really unknowingly wandering directly into the line of fire in a lot of these fights.
And that is so well called and so well played from 4Gringos. You get the kill top, you see the Invoker TP bottom, you know that there's only so many places he can be, and then Giant is immediately there. And again, playing with the relocate, actually making plays where one hero is by themselves and suddenly you flood 4. It is just the lineup finally being able to be executed, and it is perfect. This is the second or third time they've gotten a kill in such a crazy fashion, but that was just so clean from them. And now, only objective they need to care about at this point is going to be that next Roche, and you have 25 coming up on Monkey King. Of course, not the most level, he's only level 22 right now, but it becomes impossible then for Hokori to get into these engagements. It feels like right now 4Gringos have all the time and range in the world. I think Pingu might be going down here.
RDO gets it. They kind of mixed the spells a little bit there. That Avalanche was thrown down as Analog sort of threw in the Tornado, but it really doesn't matter. They still get the damage. They'll find the kill, but they need something now to follow it up. One pick off onto the IO opens the door, but now you need to be able to do something else with this as they smoked, but I think that Hawk may have just spotted it. Giant certainly will. Look at that Blink, getting himself away, and Hokori, they don't want to deal with that, but now DNM, he's straight in there with the BKB. He just killed off Gardic right away. The Roar now locks down Analog, and Hokori are just going to get basically wiped out here as Kits goes in for the lasso, pulling the Tiny back into the ring, or at least attempting to. Not actually able to do it, though, but RDO now gets pushed back by the Flame Break into that Boundless Strike, but now the Wukong's command actually runs out of time, but RDO will still fall. Valky gets the kill with the Wild Axes. Gardic tries for the Fiend's Grip, but tries is kind of the operative word there. The dive bomb from that Hawk knocks it down, and well, Misho's the lone survivor. TP's back to base, and 4Gringos, they're just executing every single one of these fights so well. They know exactly what they need. They jump in onto the Bane first, force out that buyback early. They throw down the Wukong's command with confidence, knowing anyone who's stuck in it is dead. Anyone who's not in it has to basically run away. And it's going to lead them into another teamfight win and another Roche.
Yeah, and that's what Hokori need to do. If Hokori want to win any of these team fights, they need to force out the early BKB from DNM, and that was about as early as you could get BKB-wise. He used it very early on. That's why he let his teammates do a lot of the hard work in that fight, especially trying to relocate a lot of those enemies into the ring. But you need to force his BKB, and then you need to play around the fact that you're Viper versus Monkey King. You need to get him in Nether Toxin. You need to force him to take those bad engagements, but it just feels like right now DNM is able to pick and choose which targets he gets on, and he's always sticking on to heroes that he's able to basically 100-0 at this stage of the game. The Monkey King is really completely balled out of control, and what was going to be a little bit more time until he has 25 is now going to be 25 right now on the Monkey King, as well as picking up the Basher. So now the game plan even changes more for Hokori. They need to find, again, maybe the BKB usage out early from DNM, but also trying to find onto what I can only imagine is Valkyrie. He's the only target without a BKB core-wise. They can start the fight taking out the Beastmaster. That would be really good, but that's where they're still struggling to find a lot of these chain disables, and 4Gringos are so robust at this point. Even though he doesn't have a BKB on Vitali, he's got the works of an AC, but also Pipe, Vlad, Solar Crest. He's just got all the auras in the world for this Monkey King to shred through you.
It still just kind of amazes me. On the Hokori side, we have still yet to see anybody go for any sort of movement item whatsoever, trying to deal with that Monkey King and the Wukong's command. They've kind of just resorted to dealing with it. Either we avoid it altogether or we're trapped in the middle of it. No force staff, no nothing. Gardic, well, I mean, he is making an attempt here, but outside of the cloak, he's got a BKB queued up, which is going to be great for him, but doesn't really help his teammates directly. Oh, never mind. Now the force staff comes out for him. So now we do see one, and honestly, they need it, especially with the extra ring on the Wukong's command. If RDO's just trapped up in there, I don't really care how much damage and attack speed he has. It feels like he's just not going to win that fight. So they need to try and get him out, regroup somehow, and then try to push back in once the Wukong's command is over. And we haven't really seen them ever pull that off to this point in the game.
Yeah, and this might not be the Aegis that breaks the base necessarily, and this does mean that Hokori get a few more of their items, but when you look at their lineup, what is the scaling going forward? RDO, he's got a full moon shard now, he does a lot of damage, but the caveat is he able to right click? And they see it, perfect. Fireflight, they need the Ava though.
Get it. Pingu thrown up in the air by the Yule, so we can't go for the relocate. They found the kill. Now Pingu, he's just trapped in the middle of this. The toss comes through. They'll find him as well, but DNM coming in. There's that Wukong's command being deployed. RDO's going to pop the BKB. He's got to get out, but the Roar going to prevent him from doing so. Gardic needs that Force Staff. Hasn't thrown it out yet. There it is. RDO's going to be able to get out, but the Hex from Giant still in there. Deafening Blast, though, does come through. That keeps DNM away. They put him under with the Nightmare as well, but RDO is still in trouble. Lotus Orb is going to be able to reflect that stun, but it can't reflect that Finger of Death. He'll be taken down now. They do get the lasso onto Analog, forcing him into the fight. And 4 Gringos are going to be able to just clean house here. Vitali will get knocked back onto the low ground by the Flame Break. He is dead, and buybacks are not in a fantastic spot. Analog is going to use his. They have one up on El Misho. He'll use it as well, but that's it. No one else has it available, and that is 3 heroes to try and defend the high ground. DNM, though, with the Aegis still in hand, he's just going to push as hard as he can here.
Yeah, there's nothing that they can really do versus this Monkey King. Their biggest timing is a minute and 20 seconds from now when that Aegis actually expires, but this is free range. It's still not the fastest push possible. Monkey King isn't known for his tower taking capabilities, but you're still just in a safe position to do really whatever you want. Elmisha can try to burn as much mana as he can. He can try to be obnoxious, but without this Tiny, none of this matters. It's just going to be 4 Gringos going for it, and they really need to wait. 50 seconds and a play can be made onto DNM, but I don't think they can afford to really spend anything lasting here.
Let's see if they can afford to wait that long. Tier 3 tower is dropping down, and C4 Gringos, no one else is even really pushing in here. They are doing such a good job of maintaining this distance, this separation, so that if Hokori do try to make a play, they are immediately ready to sort of collapse. So there's really just not a whole lot to be done there, and at this point, for Gringos, honestly, I feel like they could have stayed and tried to go for a little bit more, but with the Tiny respawning, they're going to show a little bit of respect to that opposing lineup. They back away, but they do so now with about a 20k net worth lead and a pretty clear hold on momentum in this match right now. Hokori, they need something drastic, and they are going to try for the smoke play here, so we'll see if they can time this up perfectly. Yeah,
They saw the ward get placed. Yep, they see everything. And now they know. They just have to walk back to their high ground. If they go for this play down bottom, it is more or less a suicidal play. They will just get cleaned up if they go for anything, and that's why 4 Gringos are also smoking up to try and get their opponents possibly going towards top. But the issue is, as soon as this bottom wave starts pushing in and there's no one to meet it, it's very obvious where the Hokori lineup is playing, and that's a big problem for them. As soon as their opponents can make that call, mid-racks is still very easy. It's very simple for them to just walk over and get that pressure immediately, as well as DNM just being very cautious. Doesn't even stick around for the mid-wave. They let the boars clean it up because they don't want to give an opening over to the Hokori side. Even when they were backing off of that mid-racks, it was because of Grip coming back off cooldown, as well as the Tiny.
Oh.
If they get this high ground...
This is massive. They jump in. They've got Vitali. They stun him up. They're going to get the last one to RDO as well. There's no one to save him, but there's the Ascetic Scap coming into play. The BKB is activated, but he just can't live long enough. RDO's dead. Vitali's gone as well, and this is just going to be really an absolute massacre. Gardic is dead.
GG.
That's it. Whoa.
The only thing they could have done there is hold the high ground. They hold the high ground, they try to get the ward, Pingu immediately puts an obs up there, it becomes a fight for the vision, and Hokori have to spend so much. You look at all their heroes, they're dying with all of their ultimates more or less, they weren't able to get that perfect fight for them, and as soon as Ardio's in the ring, he's stuck in the ring, just dies. There's nothing he can do about it. It's the unfortunate circumstance of that core matchup, but really, I think 4 Gringos did a really good job of forcing their opponents to play in a very specific way. There was no longer a scenario where they were getting caught off guard, where they were actually able to play the IO strategy where you sit one hero and then you relocate, and then suddenly there are four in the blink of an eye. And I think they did that really well, something that even the other two teams that were playing IO weren't doing quite as cleanly as they were actually able to manage. But I think the bigger issue is that we never saw a big sync up. If we get a Blink Dagger on El Misho maybe a little bit sooner, then I can see them going for a lot of these plays. But it was the double BKB timing coming out from four Gringos and the itemization on Hokori not able to stand up to it. They were so reliant and so confident in their ability to hit their spells and get the damage out on those four Gringos targets that even though those BKBs were being completed and they saw the buildup coming, it still felt like Hokori left themselves open. It felt like they definitely didn't have those prepared moves. And unfortunately, I think they lose the game off of that. They lost so much momentum after those first few kills. And then it felt like all four Gringos needed to do was hit their one or two targets, and then the map was theirs.
Yeah, it's just the openings that were provided to them, as you said. And, we were mentioning in the draft with that four Gringos lineup, we didn't really like it. To be perfectly honest, it didn't really seem quite as strong as what Hokori put together. But if the lineup that looked stronger on paper isn't able to actually force the opposing team into the moves that give them that strength, then it doesn't really do them a whole lot of good. We saw that on display for Gringos with a solid win there in game one to open up the series, and now they're the squad putting all of the pressure on the opposing side. Hokori going to have to sort of think up something maybe a little bit new to try and fight their way back into it.
Yeah, and I don't think they need to change all too much because again, their lanes were good. Their lanes were solid. It felt like they had done exactly what they needed to do in that draft. But when it comes down to the play, and something that's unfortunate with Analog Invoker, it's not that it's hit or miss. It's just that if his rotations do work, that's great. You get off to a good start. But as soon as he starts falling behind in that mid game, where maybe he would have wanted a BKB slightly sooner, maybe he would have wanted a Blink Dagger slightly sooner, it feels like he is a player that is very susceptible to his opponents just catching him off guard one or two times. And then I don't feel like we had an Invoker for the rest of the game. And that's the trade-off you get because Invoker is not one of the most stable heroes in Dota, but it still feels like one or two deaths. And now we don't have Invoker. We have an Alacrity Tiny. That's what our mid laner is able to do now, where maybe a different hero would have done them a little bit better. It's hard to call, but I think they don't need to change too much. Just need to play a little bit better and play a little bit better with a lead that they had very easily for a long time, but just threw it away.
Mismanaging that a little bit on their part is what allowed some of those opportunities that four Gringos took advantage of. So we'll see if they can clean it up for game two. They're going to have to. Otherwise, their run in the playoffs of this event could be cut well short of where they would like it to be. 1-0 lead for that four Gringos side in this best of three. So we are going to be moving into game two in a little bit. Not sure on an ETA because the game coordinator is not cooperating at the moment, but as soon as it's back up, we will be diving into that game two draft. So we will try to keep you updated on that front, but for now, sit tight. Game two is going to be coming your way in just a little bit.